I see you. Welcome back to the channel, man. How is everybody doing today? How are we doing today? Welcome back to Donnyland. On today's episode of Donnyland, brought to you by OG Donny, we will be watching the craziest alien theories in Joe Rogan history. Hey, I'm a conspiracy theory guy, man. I believe in aliens. I believe in extraterrestrial shit. If you think we are the only beings in this vast, incredibly large, incredibly beautiful, just dynamic, strange... I'm already hearing shit, bro. I'm already hearing shit. Just this thing we called life. If you believe we're the only beings out there in this world, in this universe, in this galaxy, boy, do I have some news for you. Hey, and Joe Rogan, I fuck with Joe Rogan. I love Joe Rogan. That's a strong word. I like to watch Joe Rogan. I like the Joe Rogan podcast. It quickly became one of my favorite podcasts. So shout out Joe Rogan. Today, let's see some of the craziest theories that have been on there.
These are 5 of the craziest alien theories in Joe Rogan Experience history. Starting on the Joe Rogan Experience number 1762, featuring Josh Zepps. Now, first off, Josh Zepps tries to explain just how long the history of human civilization is by putting it in a book. He says that if there were an 800-page book that goes through our whole 160 million years of history, then roughly each page would be about 200 years of history. If you opened that 800-page book to any random page, roughly the same thing would be happening in history as the previous pages. Basically, people are just wandering around. Some people are learning how to use fire, some people are learning how to use metals, but roughly the same sort of things are going on throughout the book. It would only be at the last few pages of the book where we started to create nuclear bombs, we went to space, the evolution of the internet, vehicles, etc. All of this stuff would be in the last few pages of this whole 800-page book about the history of human civilization.
I have seen some shit, some scientific studies before. Oh my god, OG Donny, you have science that backs up your facts? Bitch, I do. Bitch, I do. It was this book, and it was something along the lines of, if you were to put the whole existence of the universe and life on like this scale, this clock. This was at the time I read it and I heard it. We would only be like 9 minutes into the entire existence of everything. We would only be 9 minutes into it.
If an alien who knew nothing about anything took that 800-page book, they'd be like, page 233 is roughly the same as page 722.
Yeah.
But they'd get to the end and they'd be like, holy shit, what's going to happen next? Like, I want to read the sequel to this book. I want to read, what's 801?
Well, that's when they would keep an eye on us.
Now, Josh Zepp talks about almost as an explanation for why there have been more alien or UFO sightings recently than any other time in the history of human civilization. It's only been recently where things have dramatically changed in human civilization that would be of interest to aliens.
So, when they dropped Fat Man and Little Boy on Japan, that's when UFO sightings started happening all over the globe. There's a giant uptick in UFO sightings. Was it Kenneth Arnold?
And if you really think about it, let's rewind the tape.
There's a giant uptick.
What does that fire kind of engulf into?
That
kind of looks like a UFO.
UFO sightings. Was it Kenneth Arnold was one of the first, I believe. He's the guy who spotted, I think it's Kenneth Arnold, was the guy that spotted the flying saucers. He was the first one to discuss them as saucer-shaped discs, but they started seeing them all over the place. Like there was encounters in Washington, D.C., and there was encounters over nuclear bases, and where they said that they had shut codes down. And
the first ever UFO sighting in North America goes all the way back to 1639, recorded by a man named John Winthrop, who was the
Heard of him before.
Governor of Massachusetts Bay Colony. Winthrop reported seeing a quote-unquote great light in the night sky that hovered, flew, and changed shape. But the term flying saucer didn't become popular until 1947, after a pilot named Kenneth Arnold described seeing a string of 9 unidentified flying objects flying past Mount Rainier in Washington State. After 1947, UFO sightings increased dramatically. Many believe that there is a a connection between UFO sightings and nuclear activity, including after the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Since 1945, there have been many UFO sightings in the area around Hiroshima, deeming it a UFO hotspot. Now, going back to the book of the history of human civilization analogy, it's very plausible that something like the creation of the nuclear bomb sparked aliens' interest on human civilization, and that hints why sightings have significantly spiked after World War II.
They seen us fucking up our own world, and they were like, oh shit, we might not have to do the job. We might not have to do the job for them.
No, if there was alien life, and if there is alien life out there that's aware of us, I don't know if they would intervene, because we don't really do much when we find chimps. You know, the scientific community, the intelligent scientific community doesn't try to interfere with their life and give them guns and this is how you start a fire.
An interesting thing to note is that chimps have noticed that humans exist. Chimpanzees can recognize humans and are aware of our existence. So if aliens are studying humans like humans did to chimps, it's possible that they would never try to intervene. But if that's true, it's also possible that one day we will notice and become aware of extraterrestrial existence.
Like when we train our telescopes on the sky, why isn't there any evidence of little flickering radio waves coming from somewhere? But a possible explanation is the one that you say, which is we're looking for the wrong things. We've only been emitting radio waves for a century, and we might be just about to end that and go into some virtual reality metaverse or something, and maybe we'll meet them all there. Maybe we'll unlock some door of the Zuckerberg multiverse and be like, oh, here are a whole bunch of pre-existing civilizations of aliens who already exist on this platform.
Now, if we think about all of the planets that we know exist just in our solar system and think about their conditions, there are very few of them that could actually support life. Like, for example, there is no conclusive evidence that Mars has ever had life, but there is evidence that suggests it may have been habitable in the past, such as Mars had liquid water and a warmer climate in the past, but still very few of the planets in our solar system could even potentially support life. But going outside of our solar system, it could be very possible that there is a planet similar to Earth, and maybe that planet didn't go through the things that our
Earth 1, Earth 616, Earth 834.
Earth did, like getting hit by a Mars-sized object that created our moon and asteroid belt, or even things like the Toba volcano, which erupted and nearly wiped out humanity. There could be another place just like Earth that could be way more advanced due to not experiencing things like our Earth and our humanity did.
So let's imagine that there was some sort of a civilization 10,000 years ago, 20,000 years ago that was very advanced and was a
Which there probably was, bro. There probably was. You really think the pyramids got there by themselves? You really think they took brick by brick by brick and stacked those shits up, bro? I don't.
allowed to advance without any interruption, without nuclear war, without solar flares, without asteroid impacts or supervolcanoes. Maybe they lived in a much more stable climate, and they got to a place where they're a million years more advanced than us. A million years. Imagine what the we're going to be in a million years.
Now, if that's the case, and there is a civilization out
shit, none of us will be here to see, bro. That's a crazy thing too. Like we have these time periods, like no shit, OG Donnie. But just think of like the Romans, the Greeks, like the old civilizations, Mesopotamia, shit like that, where they started, like they kind of opened the door, but then civilization after civilization after, we kind of just pushed it, bro. Like imagine with what we're discovering now and what we're thinking in the minds, with the shit that the minds can do now. Just imagine how evolution and human advancement, if there's even still humans in a million years, bro, it might be completely robots. Have you ever seen the movie Robots? That might be what the world looks like in a million years.
there that is even a few hundred years more advanced than us, more than likely that civilization wouldn't interfere with us. So if there are aliens out there watching us, that's literally all they're doing, watching us. Theoretically, they are not going to invade us or start killing us. They are simply just studying us.
Like if you think about what a scientist is, it's someone who wants to observe but sometimes protect. You know, like we protect endangered species. Activists get together and they say, hey, you know, there's only a few of these birds left. We have to do whatever we can to preserve them.
Right.
attitude and
Yeah.
just sort of wait for us to figure it out.
And
especially if they look at the acceleration of our innovation and this exponential acceleration of technology. And
think about it this way. If there is a civilization out there that is way more advanced than us and has found a way to even, find our Earth, more than likely they are a standoffish type of civilization, because if they were a predatory civilization, it's very unlikely that they would have the technology to find us, because there would just be way too many internal conflicts within that civilization. On the JRE MMA show number 107 featuring George St. Pierre, Joe and GSP get into a conversation about aliens and lost knowledge. Now, Joe starts this conversation by briefly talking about
See, that's what I mean. Lost knowledge, bro. What? Fuck. What was it that burnt down? Was it the Vatican? Or is the Vatican what it is called? Let me Google this. I'm doing a quick Google. They burned the city down, bro. If you know what I'm talking about. The Library of Alexandria, bro. Just imagine all of the shit that was in the Library of Alexandria that is not in the Vatican. Come on, bro. All of those texts that we cannot see will never be released to the public. They know some crazy shit. They have to. You're talking about thousands of years ago. We probably know the bare minimum. We definitely know the bare minimum.
Travis Walton's alien abduction story. In 1975, a forestry worker named Travis Walton was allegedly abducted by aliens. Now, the story goes that on November 5th, 1975, Travis Walton and 6 other people that were working with him were driving down a forest road when they saw a lit object above the ground near the roadway. Travis Walton reportedly got out of the truck and ran towards the object, and the object shined a bright light on him. The 6 other members of Travis's crew drove off in fear, leaving Travis behind.
Oh man, bro, what the fuck?
Now, there was a massive search party in place to find Travis, but after the night of November 5th, 1975, Travis was nowhere to be found. And then on November 12th, 7 days after Travis went missing, he placed a collect call to his sister's home from a payphone in Arizona. Now, Travis had claimed that on November 5th, he was abducted by aliens. Now, Travis Walton has shared his story, but a really interesting part of his story is how the aliens communicated with him. Travis claims that the aliens were talking to him, but it wasn't with words. The aliens were communicating with him, and Travis could understand them, but the aliens weren't talking. They were talking to Travis telepathically.
And I think
I have heard that before, bro. And I also think if aliens, they're not gonna speak like humans. They're not humans, bro. So why the fuck would they be talking to you like I'm talking to you?
that's probably the future of communication. Just like you can transmit information from phone to phone, right? You can call people. They're nowhere near you, but you can talk to them. You can send a video to someone. It's going through the air. It's just data, right? It's just information.
Joe Rogan theorizes that the future of communication is telepathy. Now, we can take Travis Walton's story as well as Joe Rogan's theory and bring it back to the previous theory on aliens. If aliens are from an extremely advanced civilization, it could be possible that aliens have figured out how to communicate telepathically. Like Joe Rogan said, we already can transmit information from phone to phone, so it's not outlandish to think that it could be possible to one day communicate with other people just using our minds. There are already a bunch of scientists and researchers who predict that it is going to be possible, so if aliens are even 100 years more advanced than us, they could have figured out how to communicate telepathically, which hints how Travis could understand what they were saying to him without them actually talking. Now, GSP then asks Joe Rogan if he personally believes what people like Travis Walton and Bob Lazar say.
I can't tell for certain, but I believe Bob Lazar. I believe what he's saying is true. I believe he's telling me. Now, Bob, he had one moment where he was passing by a window and he said he saw something that was small and these people were standing over it, and he didn't know if it was an alien or whether it was a form that they were trying, like a doll or something that's supposed to represent the size of an alien or some sort of a model of an alien, but he remembered.
Also, I do think aliens definitely do not look like this. I've seen videos before where it's like gray alien, the green alien, shit like that. But I've also seen some shit where aliens are just humans. They're like different types of humans. They're tall as hell. Oh, I forget exactly what it's called, bro. This is some complete.
He looked briefly through a window and he saw something small. He didn't see it move around, didn't see it talk, so he doesn't know what he saw.
Bob Lazar worked at Area 51 Site 4, and one of the problems that Bob Lazar and his team were trying to figure out was how to back engineer UFOs. But the problem with this was that Bob and the scientists working with him were not allowed to communicate with other people outside of the very small group of scientists at Site 4. So obviously it was nearly impossible for the scientists at Site 4 to back engineer UFOs because they couldn't collaborate with other scientific minds. Now, the scientific method requires multiple people to communicate and share ideas, and where Bob Lazar worked at Area 51, he was not allowed to do that.
But my communication with him, I don't know if he was telling me the truth, but he didn't seem deceptive. And he's a brilliant guy. When you...
Yeah, it's clear he's clearly like borderline genius. You hear him speak, he's very educated.
And some of the things that he talked about came to fruition. Like one of the things was there was a concept of this thing called element 115, right? Yeah. Now that was not really proven until the 2000s, or somewhere in the 2000s. They used a particle collider and created this thing where it was a very unstable, very short-lived particle.
Bob Lazar claims that wherever aliens are from, they have found out a way to utilize a stabilized version of this element 115, and that is how they have propelled themselves. Now, going back to GSP,
It's like uranium or some shit.
his original question, if whether or not Bob Lazar seemed credible and seemed honest, Joe talks about how a lot of things that Bob Lazar was explaining lined up to what David Fravor experienced. Now, David Fravor is a retired naval pilot and commander of VFA 41. Now, in 2004, David Fravor reported seeing a tic-tac shaped UFO over the Pacific Ocean. David Fravor saw this object that had no visible propulsion system and watched this object go from about 80,000 feet above sea level all the way back down to 1 in 1 second. Joe explains that whatever David Fravor saw lines up to what Bob Lazar described seeing at his time working at Area 51.
He experienced this thing move in that same direction, that same way, to 1 in 1 second. So that's the amount of time that it takes radar to track this. So it might have been less than a second. This thing traveled from 80,000 feet to 1,000.
No time.
To 1 feet.
On the JRE Fight Companion from February 17th, 2019, Eddie Bravo shares a very interesting theory about space being fake. Eddie Bravo starts explaining that anybody who is a flat Earth believer also believes that space is fake. Eddie Bravo clarifies by saying that it doesn't mean that
You think the Earth is flat? I don't. I don't necessarily think the Earth is flat, but what is behind that gigantic ice wall?
space and the stars are fake. He means that all of the information we have about space is either wrong or faked. But Eddie explains that there is a reason for why people would lie about space.
The goal has always been for the most powerful emperors is a one world government. They always wanted a one world government. All the Roman emperors, they try to figure out, they try to do different combinations. How about and they would fall and a new emperor would come and go, you know what, I'm going to
world domination, in other words.
I'm not going to let my soldiers get married. That way we'll have a stronger army. They have different philosophies. Everyone believed different. But they all wanted a one world government. There's no way to have a one world government. Nobody's into that.
Right.
Not even other rulers from small countries are like, one world government, that's going to put me out of a job. One world government. People that don't know stronger army, they have different philosophies. Everyone believed different. But they all wanted a one world government. There's no way to have a one world government. Nobody's into that.
Right.
Not even other rulers.
Imagine if the whole world, every continent, every fucking state, every city, everything was just governed by one person. How do you think we as a society would be? How do you think we as a society would function? Do you think there would be chaos? Do you think it would be hell?
From small countries are like, one world government, that's going to put me out of a job. One world government. People that don't know about politics don't want a one world government. Sure. There's no way you're going to sell a one world government. It's impossible.
Eddie Bravo explains that the only way that people could make a one world government work would be to make every single human embrace it. Now, the way that Eddie Bravo thinks that someone could make the whole entire human population want a one world government would be
is if there was some extraterrestrial threat from up above us. That would be the only way to have everyone embrace the one world government. They all knew that for years.
They didn't work
That's
so far.
the plan. They could never
It's a
make
shitty
it
plan,
work.
though.
They didn't have the technology 500 years ago. The Vatican knew about it. They wanted it. And you go to the Vatican, you see paintings of like
you been there?
UFOs with aliens in them. And back when I used to believe in UFOs, but before I figured out that UFOs they want us to believe in UFOs. They're preparing us for a fake alien invasion. That's always been the plan. A one world government. The only way to do it is to get us to embrace it. And the only way to embrace it is from an alien attack.
Now, this is actually a really interesting theory when you think about it. It may sound crazy that what we know about space is all faked and that the only reason we are given information about space is to have us scared of an extra.
That makes sense though, bro. They're preparing you for what they're gonna put you through. Isn't that like how a doctor's appointment works, or like just anything in life, bro? You get ready so that when the day comes, you're prepared. Not too far-fetched.
Extraterrestrial threat so that we can embrace a one world government, but it's honestly really not that far-fetched. In Ronald Reagan's address to the United Nations in New York City on September 21st, 1987, Reagan claimed that if there were an alien invasion, all of our differences worldwide would vanish.
Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
You think the president of the United States is just gonna say some shit like that for no reason? I don't think so. Bro knew something. He was spitting game. He was spitting game from what he knew.
1966, American sociologists and political activists Richard Cloward and Francis Fox Piven created a political strategy known as the Cloward-Piven strategy. Now, this strategy aimed to utilize militant anti-poverty groups to facilitate a political crisis by overloading the welfare system via an increase in welfare claims, forcing the creation of a system of guaranteed minimum income, and redistributing income through the federal government. So in more simple terms, the four-step Cloward-Piven strategy is to 1. Overload a system, 2. Create mass panic and hysteria as the system is overloaded, 3. Oversee the destruction of the system, and 4. Replace the former system with a new system as the only solution. Now, according to Eddie Bravo's theory, that's exactly what a fake alien invasion would do. There would be a quote-unquote alien invasion that would create mass panic and hysteria, and then the only way to stop the alien invasion would be to all work together as humans, and then one person steps up to lead the world, and in return it would create a one.
OG Donnie, you're now the leader of the free world. Yo, all my people, stand behind me. We rise, we fight. These aliens are not us, but they might be us. But if we all come together as one, we can get it done. And that is for me, Captain OG Donnie.
One world government, as we would see how well everybody in the world worked together under one leader. On the Joe Rogan Experience number 1233 featuring Brian Cox, Joe Rogan asks Brian his thoughts on aliens and if he believes that there is another life form out there. Brian Cox is a physicist and musician who is the professor of particle physics in the School of Physics and Astronomy at the University of Manchester.
So a lot of physics.
Brian Cox has received many awards for his efforts to popularize science.
Yeah, I think there must be, even in the solar system, I would not be surprised if we find microbes on Mars or on some of the moons of Jupiter or Saturn where there's liquid water.
Like Europa.
Yeah. And the reason is, that if you think about, the reason I think that, and it's a guess, is because if you look at the history of life on Earth, then so Earth formed, and it was just there was no life. It was a ball of rock. And almost as soon as it cooled down, we see evidence of life. So certainly 3.8 billion years ago, possibly even further back than that, we see evidence of life on Earth.
Brian Cox explains that when you get the conditions that are naturally present on the surface of the oceans, then complex carbon chemistry spontaneously happens. We know almost 100% that life began on Earth. You could argue that life came from space or something like that, but we are almost 100% sure that life began on Earth. So we know what the
What does that even mean, life began on Earth? You think there's no other life in the universe at all?
conditions were like on Earth to lead to the origins of life? Well, those same conditions were present on Mars around 4 billion years ago, and the same conditions are present on Europa, which is an icy moon of Jupiter, and those conditions are present today. Now, Europa is a very interesting place because it's considered the most promising place in our solar system to support extraterrestrial life. For example, Europa's subsurface ocean. Europa has a thick ice shell covering a global subsurface ocean, which is believed to contain more than twice the water of Earth's oceans.
What the fuck? So there's just some random place on Jupiter covered in ice, but has a depth and the amount of water than more than 2 times Earth's oceans combined? That's crazy.
Liquid water is a key ingredient for life as we know it. Also, the energy sources on Europa. Europa experiences strong gravitational interactions with Jupiter, creating tidal forces that generate heat. This heat could keep the ocean liquid and potentially power hydrothermal vents similar to those on Earth's deep ocean floor where life thrives without sunlight. If Europa has hydrothermal vents on its ocean floor, similar to Earth's deep sea vents, they could provide heat and nutrients necessary for life. On Earth, ecosystems thrive around these vents despite the absence of sunlight.
I don't see that there's anything special. Life is just chemistry. And the idea that geochemistry becomes biochemistry is not fanciful because it happened here. So I think that given the same conditions, it would be surprising to me if the same thing didn't happen, in that life begins. So that's one of the, to test that is one of the great frontiers of science now. It's one of the great challenges, which is why another reason we're interested in Mars, because we know those conditions were there. We know there were what's called hydrothermal vent systems on the floors of oceans on Mars 3.8 or 4 billion years ago. So it would be good to know if what I've said is right. And the way we find out is to find life or evidence of past life.
Now, Joe Rogan asks Brian Cox what his thoughts are on the octopus possibly being from another planet. In 2018, a
Octopus from another planet. Have you heard that before? What's
paper was published titled Cause of the Cambrian Explosion, Terrestrial or Cosmic, by a group of scientists. In this paper, the authors explored the idea of panspermia, the hypothesis that life, or at least its building blocks, may have originated from space. They specifically suggested that octopuses and their cephalopod relatives might have evolved due to extraterrestrial influences. One of the more controversial claims was that octopus genetic complexity and their unique traits, such as their advanced nervous systems, problem-solving abilities, and ability to edit their RNA, could be explained by the arrival of
you can edit their RNA, bro?
Alien genetic material via comets or even frozen fertilized octopus eggs from space.
But with the octopus, I hadn't heard that, but the thing is that the octopus is still extremely similar biologically to us. I mean, the differences are negligible.
Yeah.
So it's still got the same energy system with this thing called ATP and DNA and all that stuff. It's all very, very similar. So I think it's unlikely because the octopus is...
So what, humans technically were octopus? Humans are long lost ancestors of octopus? Ape and octopus. That's some ape-shit octopusy.
extremely similar to us. So that suggests a common origin to me. That I suppose the counter argument you could advance would be there's only one way to do life. So you could say that actually, given, because the laws of physics and chemistry are the same everywhere. So maybe DNA is the only way to do it. So that's the way it gets done.
Which is why they're so similar to us, although so alien as well.
Yeah, they're not though. You know, that's the thing about an octopus. That's why I'm surprised about it, because they're not that alien. They're very similar.
Now, Joe Rogan says that Earth has so many different life forms that it would be incredible to find something similar on a planet like Mars or Europa. Brian Cox believes that if we were to find anything on Mars or Europa, it would be single-celled just because of how long life on Earth was single-celled before it became multicellular life, like insects and plants.
Intelligence, I would guess, would be very rare, because it took so long on Earth to get there. It
does make sense. Sometimes I forget that the process of Earth becoming the Earth that it is today took these thousands of million years, bro. Like, from the moment life first sprouted on Earth to dinosaurs and shit. Thousands of hundreds of years, just evolution. It's crazy to think about.
Slime. Like 3 billion years of slime. Was that?
3 billion years, he just said.
That was it.
On the Joe Rogan Experience number 1465 featuring Tim Pool, Joe and Tim have a really deep UFO conversation. Joe Rogan starts his conversation by talking about how the Pentagon officially released 3 UFO videos captured by naval pilots. Now, Joe Rogan says the UFOs are such a weird subject because it's very widely dismissible. He explains that just because so many crazy people have talked about UFOs, that when there could be actual real evidence of a UFO, people are going to dismiss it because of the amount of crazy people who have talked about them.
But then when you see these videos and you see them performing these impossible tasks, like these things are moving in a way that we've never seen anything move before. Flipping upside down and sideways, moving at insane rates of speed. Like, they don't know what these are.
What's interesting, though, is I was reading one of these stories, and they passively mentioned that the sighting was near a U.S. naval technology station of some sort, like a top secret development. And I'm like,
that could be one of two things: either it's developed by the people that are at that base, or they're monitoring the people that are at that base.
Tim Pool brings up a good point about the UFO footage that the Pentagon released. It is true that one of these sightings was near a naval technology center, but the Pentagon also said that the quote-unquote aircraft that they recorded displayed characteristics that are not in U.S. inventory or any foreign inventory that they are aware of, meaning that whatever these UFOs were, the Pentagon believes that they were not made on Earth. They also start to discuss the Manhattan Project and its relation to UFO sightings. The Manhattan Project was a secret U.S. research and development program during World War II that aimed to build the first nuclear weapons. It was led by the United States with support from the United Kingdom and Canada.
Manhattan Project, man. I mean, the U.S. has probably got some crazy
Could be, but
that is very true, bro. I think none of the actual nuclear weapons in the world are owned by the U.S., which is crazy, absolutely crazy. But what does the U.S. have that can counteract them? Because they definitely have some shit.
Manhattan Project was also coincidentally right after they started detonating bombs when the aliens started showing up.
That's what they think, right?
Yeah, well, that was when the bulk of U.S. sightings started jumping, and worldwide, I believe, too.
Now, there is a well-documented correlation between nuclear weapons and UFO sightings, particularly around nuclear facilities, test sites, and missile silos. While no definitive explanation exists,
What if every time they test an explosion like this, like a nuclear weapon, because you see how the flame is engulfed kind of in the shape of a UFO. So what if every time they tested one of these nuclear weapons, it's another UFO into the system? Another UFO, just perf, like some crazy magic shit.
Several theories attempt to explain this phenomenon. Some key observations include UFO sightings near nuclear sites. Since the late 1940s, UFOs have been reported near Los Alamos, Oak Ridge, and Hanford, where nuclear weapons were developed and stored. Reports from U.S. Air Force personnel claim that unidentified flying objects were seen hovering over nuclear missile sites. There have also been reported malfunctions and shutdowns of nuclear missiles. In 1967, at Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana, a group of UFOs allegedly disabled 10 nuclear missiles. In 1980, at RAF Bentwaters in the United Kingdom, U.S. military personnel witnessed a UFO near nuclear weapon storage. There have also been increased UFO sightings after nuclear tests. Major UFO waves occurred after significant nuclear detonations, including the Trinity test in 1945 and subsequent Cold War tests. Some theories on the correlation between UFO sightings and nuclear activity include extraterrestrial monitoring. Some speculate that UFOs are monitoring human nuclear capabilities, possibly to prevent self-destruction, advanced human technology. Others suggest these sightings could be secret military aircraft or drones, either domestic or foreign, interdimensional or psychological effects. Some theories propose that nuclear activity affects space-time or triggers psychological phenomena leading to UFO sightings.
Do you know about the O'Hare Airport sighting?
Which one's that?
So this was, I think, in like 06.
Is this the Denver one? Denver Airport?
At Chicago's International O'Hare, a UFO came down and hovered above, I can't remember which terminal it was. It hovered for a few minutes, I think, and then shot straight up, punched a hole in the clouds. Everybody saw it happen. Now, I had just quit working at O'Hare around this time when the sighting happened, so I had friends who were still there. I had a friend tell me that when this UFO came down, people on Mannheim Road, which is the road on the side of O'Hare, got out of their cars, like just stopped the light, got up, and were looking and staring at it. And that the people who were working, where we worked for American Eagle Airlines, walked out of the rooms and were just staring at it float and then shoot up and punch a hole in the clouds. And you know what they said? Weather phenomenon.
The O'Hare UFO sighting occurred on November 7, 2006 at Chicago O'Hare International Airport and is one of the most well-documented UFO incidents in modern history. At around 4:15 p.m., a group of United Airlines employees reported seeing a dark, metallic, disc-shaped object hovering over gate C-17. The object was estimated to be about 6 to 24 feet in diameter and remained stationary for several minutes. Witnesses claimed the UFO suddenly shot upward at high speed, leaving behind a hole in the cloud cover that remained visible for some time. The Federal Aviation Administration dismissed the event, attributing it to weather phenomenon or a hole punch cloud, despite multiple eyewitness accounts. The FFA refused to investigate further and claimed that there were no radar detections of this object. Now, Tim Pool asks Joe Rogan why he thinks that there are so few actual real photos of UFOs, especially recently because of the access to cameras on our phones. Joe thinks it's because people are liars. He does acknowledge that even though people are liars, that doesn't mean that aliens aren't real. People just like to lie about seeing extraterrestrial things for attention. Joe also
Very true.
believes that it is very rare that aliens actually visit us. He brings up how uncommon it is for scientists to go to the Congo and study chimps.
Let me trip you out on that idea. We put decoys up for animals. Animals can't tell the difference. What if you've actually met a decoy person? You couldn't tell the difference.
Maybe it's you, bro.
Maybe it's me. That's right.
And that's why you're able to work so much.
Oh yeah, I'm a robot.
You don't get tired.
No.
So you're interested in news and disseminating factual evidence.
Because what we're actually doing is collecting a database for the aliens. No, but I thought about this because I saw a photo on Reddit of a puffin, I think it's called, the bird, and they put up a fake puffin, and it's because
Completely random. My grandpa used to work at a cereal factory, and they made this fire cereal called like Puffins or some shit. Puffins. That was a cereal, and it was so gas, so good.
I think they're called puffins. It's because the birds don't like, nesting in places where they're alone. And so by putting the decoy there, the other birds would start coming. And like one bird showed up and was hanging out with the decoy. And I'm like, could you imagine, like, you see, like, we put duck decoys in the water. We do duck calls. And the duck's like, ooh, hey, fly honey, I'm going to come over and check this out. And it's like a wood block. Could you imagine, like, seeing like a beautiful woman or someone you're attracted to and being like, ooh, look at that. And it's really like an alien decoy just to like probe you and like better understand you or something?
Well, the decoy, just the term decoy is weird because decoys are used for hunting. Like turkey, it's turkey season right now.
Yeah.
And the way most guys hunt for turkeys, they take a rubber turkey, you put that out in the middle of the field, and then you hide behind a bush with a shotgun and go and then the turkeys like hear it and they come over and they try to get some and then they get shot.
So what if, you see some dude or it's like you see it for you, it'd probably be a, beautiful woman. You want to get that, and then she's going like, hey, come over here. And you're like, oh, hey, me. And
then I get eaten.
No, they just, take you up in the ship, probe you. And
these have been 5 of the craziest alien theories in Joe Rogan history.
Were those theories valid? Or were they a little... Let me know. Do you believe in aliens? Do you think aliens are real? Do you think we're the only species, the only beings in this vast universe that we are lucky enough to live in? Hey, that's a great long topic we could have for days. So if you're interested in talking about that, hit me up. But until then, you and I have to go our separate ways. The video's over. No way. Hey man. You guys know the drill. You know the drill. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know if you enjoyed it. Let me know. Hey, thank you guys for tapping in. I appreciate it. I really do. My name is Don. I see you.